Hey friends, it's me, Micah, and this is the Homestead Bandwagon. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, what's this behind me? Well, this is a new addition to the property. This is a Gothic Pro caterpillar tunnel. So this is a soft-sided greenhouse, a caterpillar tunnel. It's the Pro version, which means, it costs 10% more than the not Pro version. I think that's what Pro means. And Gothic, meaning it has a Gothic arch rather than a domed arch. That's for wind resistance. We've got a lot of wind here. Anyway, we're just gonna jump into this thing. I'll show you a couple of the options that we put on it. Talk a little bit about the install process. I won't do a full install video because Farmer's Friend does a really good job of that, but I will share some tips I learned from building this, some things I would have done a little different, and just show you some features that you can get on yours, and tell you what I think about it, I guess. I don't know, we're gonna look at a tunnel here. We're gonna look at this greenhouse. It's real exciting video. First thing I wanna know though, and I haven't measured, I wanna know if the tractor will fit through this thing. We don't necessarily need the tractor to go into it, but it'd be kind of cool to find out. So let's start with that. All right, the tractor fits. It's about as close as you can get. I don't know if you can see this, but there is, oh, I don't even know how it fit under that cross brace. Oh my goodness, that's about as close as you're ever gonna get. Yeah, it kind of fits. Oh man. I mean, that's maybe an inch of clearance. I don't even know. How terrifying. Okay. Well, let's get into her here. So we bought this thing a year ago, and it sat out in the field over yonder for a year with the tarp over it. And took the tarps off, and Farmer's Friend, I tell you what, everything in there was already covered in plastic, already pretty rain resistant, which was good because we get a lot of rain here. And everything looked great. There was condensation in there, obviously, from the temperature changes, but all was looking good, except the instructions. The instructions had gotten just wrecked. You couldn't pull the pages apart. So I went to the Farmer's Friend website because you can download instructions on the website. But the website was down because it was Saturday, which is the Sabbath. And hey, respect for folks who truly observe the Sabbath in that way. I get it. It just made it so I couldn't download instructions. So download the instructions ahead of time for sure. Everything was clearly labeled in the bags. There were nuts missing for our wind bracing, which kind of stunk. We had to quit and drive to town and go buy a bag of nuts, but them's the breaks. Otherwise, these things are really well thought out, well planned out. I mean, you almost, if you know what the thing looks like, you almost don't need instructions to put it together. So the heart and soul of these things, of course, are these ribs or these arches. So this is the Gothic style, so it has a peak. It'll shed snow better and deal with wind. We get a lot of wind here. We get gusts coming from the east this way. So the barn will kind of act like a windbreak, but we wanted to make sure that we had as much wind resistance as possible. All your arches here sit on, you can either cement them in or put them on rebar. We put them on rebar, and these are spaced 50 inches apart, 50, because we ordered the package with 4-foot spacing between these ribs. It's 4-foot spacing, but you're supposed to space them 50 inches. I don't know why they call it 4-foot spacing. If you buy a 100-foot tunnel, this is a 50. If you buy a 100-foot tunnel, then you space them 4 feet. So that was a tiny bit confusing, and I didn't have the instructions on, you know, a Saturday. So we ended up having to pull out every piece of rebar. And then I re-looked at my order, you know, my email, and I was like, oh, 4-foot spacing, okay. So we spaced them at 4 feet. And then I got the instructions on Sunday, and the instructions said, if you have a 50-foot tunnel, it's 50-inch spacing. Oopsie. So read your instructions, have them on hand. So, yep, we get these arches up. I did as much groundwork as possible. So all of these attachment points, not the bars themselves, but these attachments, we put on beforehand. So we wouldn't have to be worrying about them after, or bending these things. The guy in the video has gorilla hands. He bends these apart with his hands, and then puts them back on and then squeezes them together. I can't do that, man. We just slid them over the posts ahead of time. We built these horizontal wind braces on the ground, attached them, and then threw the ribs up. That made the most sense to me, was to have everything pre-built in the air. In the videos, they're taking these wiggle wire channels. This is what holds your plastic onto the ends. I mean, this is what attaches the plastic, is just these little pieces of wire in here in a little channel. I attached that wiggle wire channel when this was on the ground, so I wouldn't have to be on a ladder trying to screw things in. So something you might want to consider. We also ordered this with the solid center purlin. So that's great for wind resistance. So that's this thing going down the whole length. That purlin, I don't know, man. I assembled the whole thing ahead of time and then just slid it through here and used the wind braces to hold that purlin, and then I would just lift it and attach it to the ribs. And that whole procedure took like 4 hands to do. I ended up like using zip ties to hold the purlin up into the crotch of these ribs, and so I could screw together the support, or the things that hold onto them. I almost would have, in retrospect, just put the purlins in one at a time, attached them, and then put the next one in. I would have done them one at a time instead of all as one piece. So that's something. Just do them one at a time, especially if you're alone out here doing it. We do have the lifting kit on this thing. Basically just bought every option they had. So this lifting kit, you know, lifts the whole structure just a little taller. And then we ordered a bunch of extras of these. So these little guys are your skirt lifters. So lift your side, twist this, and you got ventilation, and you can move them up and down as far as you want. I ordered extras of those, and for some reason I only put them on every post when I had enough to put them on, or every other post is what I put them on. And I could have put them on every, and I don't know why I didn't. So whatever. Put them on every post. You'll be happier. And then what else? This plastic, holy smokes. This plastic is a 2-person or 3-person or 4-person job. It is. Start with the plastic on one end and have a person on either side of the tunnel, you know, walking along, pulling it over, and then somebody in the middle pushing it up so it doesn't snag on stuff. I'm not going to say we snagged the plastic a bunch. I'm not going to say we didn't snag the plastic a bunch, but Farmer's Friend will also sell you repair tape. Buy a bunch of it. So here's an example of a snag, you know. So I just taped it and then it's fine. So there's some little pinholes up there because we didn't have anybody in the center pushing the plastic up. You know, everything's rounded and smooth, and we made sure none of the screw heads were sticking out towards the plastic, but still the plastic snags. So maybe have friends or relatives or, you know, kids, whatever, helping you do this. Yeah, that's the last of the pro tips for sure. that was the only other issue we had. And they did give us enough plastic in this roll. It was huge to cover 2 of these. I didn't really realize that, so I'd let the plastic hang over one end, and then I cut it off, and then I realized that there was enough to cover this thing twice. But whatever. So I'm gonna have to figure that out later. So yeah, in retrospect, because we're gonna put end walls on this, I recommend the end wall kits for sure. I would have just pulled the plastic all the way till it was right to about here, you know, maybe 6 or 8 inches away from your end. I would have then wiggle wired it in and then just cut the giant bunch off of the end of this guy. And then I would have had enough extra plastic to cover this again in the future. So I still will, I'll just have to like tape it together or something in the middle. Oh well. And it gets hot in here, man. Holy smokes, we had this thing covered in plastic. It was 80 degrees out. It felt like, it must have been 110 inside within 5 minutes. And all the moisture came out of the ground, was on the ceiling, and it was raining down on me. It was a very expensive sauna experience, if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, I'm gonna throw the end walls up on this thing. I am really impressed with this whole experience with Farmer's Friend. Ordering it was easy. It was easy to understand what we were getting. It was easy for us to choose the right stuff. I love that they gave you the option of buying extra parts. I love having extra parts around. They even give you a bag with spare parts in it, which was nice because I dropped a couple things, couldn't find them. Hey, there's spare parts. And you know, I think one person could build this. It would take forever to put the plastic up, but it's no problem for one person to build the arches. No problem for one person to put the arches up. No problem for one person to be on a ladder screwing stuff together. Just make sure you have an impact driver and not a drill. Use an impact driver to drive the screws in for this thing. And I wasn't square on anything. This place is so bumpy. You know, even just building the ribs, we kind of got them straight, but there's a couple that are wonky, and this thing doesn't care. It's perfectly perfect in every way it could be, even though it's not square and, you know, exactly dimensioned, you know, perfectly, or whatever you call it. I don't know, man. I'm a measure twice, cut thrice kind of guy, so this is a great project for me. I could just kind of put it up and say it's good enough for rock and roll. So, yep, that's it. The good old Farmer's Friend Gothic Arch greenhouse. I am so pumped about this thing. And like I said, easy to build. So, highly recommended. Hope you all treat yourselves well out there. Treat each other well. Let's just try to get along, for goodness sake. Can we try to do that? Can we try to be a little nice to each other? We will see you soon. Adios.